questions. What is the purpose of your life? And how does it relate to you attending a conference on DAOs? Anybody? Nobody? Yes, sir.
DAO is the answer. It's sort of like managed from bottom to top, more than the conventional way of running organizations that we're used to, where it's the top managing the bottom.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's a thoughtful response. Are you working in the DAO, with the DAOs? No. Maybe you should be. We're gonna go back to that. And since we are in Athens, I want to ask whether anyone is familiar with this little booklet here called The Republic. That gentleman over there seems to be familiar with it. Anybody else? Yes, sir. Who wrote this book? Indeed. What's the book about?
It's been like 25 years, but I would say how best to organize governance in a society.
Bingo and bingo. Fundamentally, the Republic is really about justice, and Plato has a conception of justice that looks first at the collective, and then from the collective looks at the individual. And humanity has been struggling with this question for at least 2,500 years. How do we organize ourselves and devise methods of dialoguing, of engaging in dialogue, and then making fair decisions about the distribution of value? And throughout the evolution of humanity, we have had different structures suited to the times. I know that in this community, there are those who view lawyers as the enemy. And I kind of agree with you, to those of you who feel that way. To the extent that lawyers are resistant to better ways, more efficient ways of achieving consensus and the fair distribution of value, they are a hindrance. And among the lawyers, I include the regulators. But to the extent that regulators understand that the best possible arrangement is one in which they have very little to do and allow people to have open dialogues and make their own value distribution decisions, then I think we're all going to get along just fine. That's the opening. Now, going to the specific presentation that I guess I promised to deliver, I want to share a reflection of how the DAO can have a practical application in the very world that is trying to resist and that you think is the enemy, a law firm. or any other professional services organization. Why? Well, now let me tell you a little personal anecdote. In 2008, I was in Dubai, and I joined what was then possibly the most powerful international law firm on the planet. It was the newly formed merger of two very significant institutional New York firms, Dewey and LeBoeuf. Their model was very pre-2008. Bring on the superstars and do sweet deals so that they bring their books of business to the firm to have enormous revenues, so that the firm could brag along the two basic metrics, which is revenues per lawyer and profits per partner. So in that game, volume counts. So, oh, do I have this? Right? So this firm, 4 years after I joined it, the biggest, most powerful, potentially law firm in the world, did not survive the 2008 crisis. We went into bankruptcy 4 years later. What happened? And how could this have been prevented had we had a good operating DAO? Well, first, the origin of the storm was that the firm was built through secret guaranteed compensation deals for the rainmakers, otherwise known as backroom deals. Secondly, that when the revenues went down by each and every partner because of the financial crisis, there were more secret deals going on to see to try to convince those that had the most revenue in an eroding situation to stay within the firm. And of course, everybody else who was seeing their compensation cut back significantly lost trust in management. So some people started heading for the door, and then that became a stampede. So here are the problems. And number one, opaque compensation systems. Number two, hierarchical exploitation. If you don't know anything about big law firms, let me tell you this. They are extremely hierarchical in their structure. It used to be that you had partners and associates. Now you have senior partners, you have service partners, you have rainmakers, you have senior associates, you have mid-level associates, incredibly hierarchical. And the third problem was this rainmaker sweet deals. So, I don't need to tell you what a DAO is, but I think I can already go around the room and ask you to tell me how, if we had a DAO, we could have prevented some of this. Right? Be my consultant. Can anybody tell me how the use of a DAO in a law firm partnership could have prevented the collapse of Dewey LeBoeuf? Yes, sir. Say that again. There you go. A collective organization on chain. Now, it took developers to organize themselves, programmers, for them to figure out what was fair compensation based on value distribution among themselves to set the example of this? What is a team of developers? What is a team of programmers? It's a professional service organization. Is there any difference, really? No, but they had the skills. They had the skills to program fairness and justice into their arrangements to the extent that they are being used fairly, because there's also exploitations within the existing DAO organizations. It all depends on what rules you write into them. It all depends on the four wonderful points that my new friend back there explained this morning. Dialogue is essential. Can you remind us of those 4 points?
Yeah, sure. Ideation, discourse, allocation, accountability.
There you go. Ideation. Is that relevant in professional services like law firms? Yes. The client has a problem, they come to you, they need a solution. You talk amongst the lawyers, who knows what? Who can come up with a solution? Ideation. Dialogue. You need to have open conversations. The biggest problems that I've seen in law firms as well as in other organizations, there's not enough dialogue, which is the reason why every Tuesday I sponsor, mostly attended by lawyers, a seminar where we discuss the Platonic dialogues in order to get people to practice the art of dialogue, right? So these are some of the features that solve a lot of the problems with the value distribution. On-chain proposals and voting, that your voting proposals and voting, they're visible to all participants. The automated enforcement of decisions, et cetera, et cetera. Also, transparent compensation, no backroom deals. And perhaps somebody was talking this morning also about recurring, what do they call it? Recurring decisions, right? So, for example, the typical structure of a law firm is that you get your monthly compensation and then you get your bonus depending on your contributions. The monthly comp is recurrent, and the bonuses, that's a special vote, right? So the other thing that generally those involved in the DAO industry, inspired by your own tribe of programmers, is that people should be compensated on the basis of the value they bring into a project, not based on the longevity of the person there, the value they bring to it. So again, on a per project basis, discussions can be had about who contributed what, consensus arrived at, and then the compensation distributed. So does anybody know what life within a big law firm looks like for the associates relative to the partners? So the associates are there, you know, Monday, at least I was, Monday through Sunday. The big bonus was we get to come in at 10 in the morning, but does that matter when you're leaving at 4 or 5 in the morning? Monday through Sunday? You're being paid handsomely, relatively, but the partner is being paid 4 or 5 times more than you are, and he's going home every night at 5, 5:30, 6, Monday through Friday. So what are the challenges? So what I'm suggesting here, and the reason why why I thought we should do a presentation on this, is because those of you who are interested in promoting DAO technology, it is my dream that people will begin to focus on specific industries and introduce the benefits of the DAOs to the specific industries, explaining very clearly the problems that DAOs solve. Somebody this morning made another really good point. I think it was the marshmallow guy, who said, part of the problem right now is that developers are coming up with a lot of solutions, and then another gentleman today said, you know, if it's programmable, people are just programming it, right? But in a way, it's also useful to think first about what is the problem, and then get those people who can code the solution to those problems and match them. There's a mismatch right now. There's a lot of solutions out there that haven't been matched to the problems yet. And if there's a group of people that specialize in matching the solutions to the relevant industries, then we're really going to get going with the DAO. Right? Okay, so law is just one example of a trust-based, high-stakes industry. But there's healthcare, consulting, et cetera, right? I think that we can skip all that. And since all of you have been here for 2 days, and it's the end of the day except for one more presentation, I'll be happy to take any questions at this point. Yes, sir.
I've been in the consulting industry for about 8 years, right? And lawyers were very not up to date with technology. How was your experience bringing that super innovative idea on technology and DAOs into the industry?
I owe it to that guy right there. Raise your hand, Jose Naif. Okay?
Yes,
I owe it to that guy.
An amazing guy.
So, for me, this journey began, and I'm going to just get to it eventually, right? It began with the 2008 financial crisis, and I read the Bitcoin white paper when it came out, and I knew there was a lot that was going to change, right? My main interest, like that gentleman back there also, he said, I'm a Bitcoiner maximalist, okay? I'm in this industry because of the monetary policy angle here. And in fact, as a lawyer, I went back and I got my master's in finance from the University of Chicago to focus on monetary policy issues because of my interest in Bitcoin. And I was witnessing the whole evolution of the blockchain space, through ICOs, and thinking as a securities lawyer, because that's my expertise. I'm an international securities lawyer. And I said, ICOs, totally legal, but there's so many of them, I don't think they're going to catch. They're going to make examples occasionally, et cetera. And then Jose invited me to join Realms to provide legal advice. And that's when I started seeing the DAOs, and I said, this finally is a real-world blockchain-derived utility use case that has enormous implications for organizations, enormous. And I think we're just at the beginning of this. For example, it is a mistake to think that there's going to be DAO development independent of the rest of the world. All company law is very good. It took thousands of years to develop our existing company law. It comes back, the idea of a corporation goes back to Roman times. So let's not disregard all the great know-how that has accumulated through the ages, but let's use the DAO technology to digitize our existing corporate governance structures, right? So you take the articles of incorporation of a company and you code that in a DAO. And then every company should be represented by a DAO, right? And DAOs should be legalized as, the appropriate mechanism for people making decisions at the board level of a company and in shareholder actions as well. So that was sort of a long answer, sorry, but I hope it addressed it.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening.